Cody Harrell didn't reach for the phone. He didn't flip the sign to closed. He just stood at the window of Harrell Auto and Tire, watching the rain come down in sheets off the escarpment, and he listened to the sound of something heavy pulling off the highway. It was 11:47 at night, the kind of night where the Trans-Canada turned into a river, and sensible people stayed wherever they were. Cody had stayed because he hadn't finished the brake job on the Silverado in Bay 2, and because the shop was warm, and because going back to his apartment meant sitting with the envelope from the bank that he'd left face down on the kitchen table 3 days ago and still hadn't opened. He was 26 years old. He had owned Harrell Auto and Tire for 14 months, since his uncle Gerard had signed the place over to him the winter before he died. The building was older than either of them. The lift in Bay 1 needed a seal. The compressor ran hot. The floor drain backed up when it rained like this. Cody knew every sound the building made the way he knew the sound of his own breathing, and the sound it was making now was a sound he didn't recognize. Heavy tires on wet gravel, more than one vehicle slowing down. He counted 5 bikes through the window glass, then 3 more pulling in behind, 8 total. Big machines, custom frames, the kind of steel that cost more than his truck, and said something about the people riding it. They pulled under the overhang at the side of the building, the way people pull under an overhang when they're not planning to leave soon. Cody watched one of them get off his bike and then immediately grabbed the shoulder of the man next to him to keep him from going down. That was the only thing that made him move. He pushed through the side door into the rain. "He okay?" Cody said. The man who'd steadied his friend looked up. He was built like a refrigerator, beard going gray at the jaw, a cut on his cheek from something recent. His eyes went to Cody the way a person's eyes go to a stranger when they're trying to calculate something fast. "He rode the last 60 kilometers not telling anyone," the man said. "We didn't know till he almost went into the ditch." Cody looked at the man being held up. He was conscious, barely. His face had the color of old wax and his breathing was doing something wrong. "What's wrong with him?" He said his chest. "Been saying it's nothing for 2 days. Bring him inside," Cody said. The big man blinked. "You sure about that?" "I'm sure the rain's not helping him," Cody said and held the door. His name was Cody Harrell, and he had grown up in Sudbury, Ontario, the son of a mechanic and the grandson of a mechanic. And the one thing both of them had ever agreed on was that you didn't leave a person standing in the rain. That was not a complicated position. It didn't require thought. He held the door, and the man with the gray beard, who would tell Cody his name was Bryce, just Bryce, later that night, helped the sick man through it, and the other 6 came in behind them without being asked. The shop smelled like oil and rubber, and the coffee Cody had made at 9 that night that had been sitting on the burner ever since. He pulled a creeper out from under the bench, and they got the sick man, whose name was Ozzy, short for Oswald, which Cody would not learn until morning, down onto it with his back against the tool chest. "He's got a pacemaker," said the youngest one in the group. He didn't look older than 19. He had a split lip that was still fresh and the look of someone who was used to being the smallest person in a room and had made peace with it. "He's had it 2 years. He said he felt it kick earlier." "Did he take anything for it?" "He said he was fine." Cody crouched down next to Ozzy and looked at him. Ozzy looked back. He had the eyes of a man who knew exactly how much trouble he was in and had decided the best strategy was to minimize it. "You're not fine," Cody said. "I've been worse," Ozzy said. "Not tonight you haven't," Cody said and reached for the phone on the wall. He called 911 and told them what he had, and the dispatcher told him what he already suspected, which was that the roads between here and the nearest cardiac unit in Sault Ste. Marie were closed at Miller Creek due to flooding, and the earliest an ambulance could get through was 90 minutes. 90 minutes. He hung up the phone and turned around, and 8 men were watching him in the particular way that people watch someone when they're trying to figure out if they can trust them. 90 minutes, he said. "Roads out at Miller Creek." Nobody said anything. "He needs to stay warm and stay still," Cody said. "I've got a space heater in the office. I've got a first aid kit. I can't promise anything, but he's in better shape here than he was in the rain." Bryce looked at him for a long moment. "Why are you doing this?" Cody thought about that. He thought about his uncle Gerard, who had run this shop for 31 years and had kept a cot in the back office for anyone who needed it, no questions asked. He thought about the winter he was 17, and his dad's truck had blown a gasket on the 17, and a man he'd never met had spent 2 hours in a snowstorm helping him get it running again. "Because there's nowhere else for him to be," Cody said. He got the space heater. He got the first aid kit. He made a fresh pot of coffee because the old one was burnt and because his hands needed something to do. He spread a moving blanket out on the floor of the office, and they got Ozzy settled on it, propped up at an angle because lying flat seemed to make his breathing worse. And Cody sat on the floor next to him and watched the numbers on his watch and listened to him breathe. The others spread out through the shop in the way that people spread out when they've been riding for a long time and their bodies need space. The young one, his name was Ellis, Cody would learn, sat on an overturned bucket near the door and didn't say much. A big quiet man named Drew found a broom and swept up a corner of the floor without being asked and sat down there. The others talked in low voices or didn't talk at all. Around 1 in the morning, Bryce came and sat in the doorway of the office. "He's your president?" Cody asked. "He's my brother," Bryce said. "Older one, by 11 months. Cody nodded. "We were on our way back from Port Arthur," Bryce said. He didn't say anything about his chest until Ellis noticed him weaving. "He ever do this before? Ride sick?" "Every time he's sick," Bryce said. "He does not know how to stop." Cody thought about people who don't know how to stop. He thought about himself, 14 months in, running a shop that was hemorrhaging money through equipment that was 20 years past its best life, working 70-hour weeks because the alternative was admitting it wasn't working. He knew something about not knowing how to stop. "He's going to be okay," Cody said, because he believed it, and because sometimes you say things you believe out loud to help them stay true. "You got family?" Bryce asked. "My uncle owned this place. He died last March." Bryce was quiet for a moment. "He leave it to you?" "He left it to me," Cody said. "I don't know if that was a gift or a warning." Bryce almost smiled. It moved across his face and then was gone. "He know you'd keep it running?" "He knew I'd try," Cody said. "He made soup around 2 in the morning. It was the canned kind, the only kind he had. 2 cans of chicken noodle that he found at the back of the shelf in the bathroom-turned-break room that nobody had ever actually used as a bathroom. He heated them on the single-burner hot plate and distributed them in whatever mugs and paper cups he had. And nobody made a comment about the soup, which was fine because it wasn't remarkable soup, and everyone drank it, which meant something." Ellis came and stood in the door of the office with his mug. "Is this place yours?" he asked. "Yeah," Cody said. "You do all the work yourself?" "Mostly. I've got a guy who comes in Thursday and Fridays." Ellis looked around at the shop. The lift, the compressor, the pegboard of tools, all of it worn but organized in the way of a person who took care of what they had. "My dad had a shop," Ellis said. "Smaller than this. He closed it when I was 12. "Why'd he close it?" "He couldn't keep up with the lease," Ellis said. He said it the way you say things you've had a long time to make peace with but haven't entirely. Cody didn't say anything. He just nodded and poured Ellis more coffee from the pot. Ozzy's breathing steadied around 2:30. He fell into something that was close to sleep. Not comfortable but not frightening. And Bryce sat with him and Cody moved out into the main bay and stood by the window and watched the rain. It was still coming down hard. The puddle in the lot had grown until it had connected with the puddle along the fence, and they were one thing now. The sign Harold Auto and Tire, the H slightly off-center because Cody had put it up himself and hadn't owned a proper level, was lit and casting orange light onto the wet gravel below it. Drew came and stood next to him. "You got a leak," Drew said, pointing up at the corner of the roof where a thin stream of water was running down the wall and pooling behind the tire rack. "I know," Cody said. "It's on the list." Drew looked at the list, which did not exist as a physical document but which was very real, and seemed to understand what kind of list it was. "What kind of work do you do here mostly?" Drew asked. "Whatever comes in," Cody said. "Oil changes, tires, brakes, suspension. Some engine work if it's not too involved. I've been getting more fleet work lately. A couple of the highway contractors have been sending their trucks. That's good money." "It's steady money," Cody said, which was not the same thing, but was something. Drew nodded. He had the manner of a man who worked with his hands and recognized the shape of another man's relationship to work. "You been here long?" Drew asked. 14 months. Before that, 5 years at a dealer in Sudbury. Before that, my uncle's shop summers and weekends since I was 15. Drew was quiet for a moment. "You're good at this." Cody looked at him. "I mean the work," Drew said, "but also the other thing, the keeping calm part." Cody didn't know what to say to that, so he didn't say anything. The ambulance came at 3:48 in the morning. 2 paramedics, efficient and unhurried the way good paramedics are when the situation is stable, and they got Ozzy on a stretcher and evaluated him in the way of people who had done this 10,000 times. And the lead one, a woman named Carol, whose name tag Cody would remember because she had the same directness his uncle had, told Bryce that his brother had a partially blocked lead wire on his pacemaker and had been lucky to have a quiet night and a warm floor. "Lucky," Bryce said. "Lucky," Carol said. Ozzy reached up from the stretcher and grabbed Bryce's wrist. He looked at Cody. "Who are you?" he said. His voice was rough. "Cody, this is my shop." Ozzy looked at him for a long moment. "You're Gerard Harrell's kid," he said. Cody stared at him. "I know that sign," Ozzy said. "I knew your uncle. I stopped here maybe 15 years ago, maybe more. He fixed my rear wheel for cost and gave me coffee and didn't ask me a single question about where I was going." Cody couldn't speak for a moment. "You've got his hands," Ozzy said, and then the paramedics moved him through the door and out into the rain, which had started to let up. The others gathered their things slowly, the way people gather things when they're tired, but not in a hurry, because the urgency has passed and what's left is just the ordinary work of moving. Bryce came and shook Cody's hand. His grip was the kind that communicates something. "The road should be open by morning," Bryce said. "I know," Cody said. "We'll follow the ambulance as far as the cutoff." "That's good. He'll want that." Bryce looked at him. "Is there anything you need?" Cody thought about the bank envelope on his kitchen table. He thought about the leak in the corner. He thought about the lift seal and the compressor running hot, And the fact that he had $11,000 in his account and the quarterly payment on the building was $14,000 and due in 3 weeks. No, he said. I'm good. Bryce nodded as if he wasn't sure he believed that and had decided to respect it anyway. They shook hands again, and Bryce went out to his bike, and the others followed, and one by one the machine started up, a sound that filled the whole lot and then diminished as they pulled out onto the highway and turned north. Cody stood in the door and listened to them go. He didn't tell anyone about the bank envelope. He didn't tell his Thursday-Friday guy, Patrick, who arrived at 8 the next morning with a travel mug and a bag of donuts and noticed immediately that the floor had been swept in a corner he'd never seen anyone sweep before. He didn't tell his mother, who called on Saturday to ask how things were going, and to whom he said they were going fine in the tone that meant she would believe it for another 2 weeks before she called again. He opened the envelope on the Thursday. The number inside was what he'd expected. He sat with it for a while and then put it on the corner of the desk under the ceramic mug that had been his Uncle Gerard's, the one with the crack in the handle that had been repaired with epoxy. So many times the handle was more epoxy than ceramic at this point. And he went back out to the floor, because there was a Jeep Grand Cherokee in Bay 1 with a front axle situation that wasn't going to resolve itself. He was under the Jeep when he heard it. At first he thought it was the highway, a sound like weather, like something building. He slid out from under the Jeep and looked at Patrick, who had come to the door of the bay and was standing very still. You hear that? Patrick said. I hear it, Cody said. He stood up and walked to the big door and looked out. The highway was moving. Not cars, motorcycles. A long, slow river of them coming from the north. 2 abreast, the way bikes travel when they're riding together properly. The way that says we know what we're doing and we're doing it on purpose. He watched them and he counted, and he stopped counting when he ran out of easy numbers. They were turning into his lot. They kept turning. The lot filled and then overflowed onto the shoulder, and still they came. Big bikes and small ones, chrome and matte and ancient paint and custom work, all of it mixed together in the specific democracy of people who are here because they decided to be here. He recognized Bryce in the front, and behind Bryce he recognized Ellis and Drew and the others from that night, and behind them were faces he had never seen. There were, he would find out later, 312 of them. Bryce got off his bike and walked across the lot to where Cody was standing. He looked at Cody the way you look at someone when you need to see their face while you say something. Ozzy's okay, Bryce said. They did a procedure on Tuesday, he's home. That's good, Cody said. His voice came out strange. He told people, Bryce said, about your uncle, about you, about the night. Cody looked at the lot, at the 312 people on motorcycles who had come down the Trans-Canada on a Thursday morning. What are they doing here? Cody said. We talked to your Thursday-Friday guy, Bryce said. Patrick, he told us about the lift, and the compressor, and the other thing. Cody looked at him. He thought you could use some help, Bryce said. So did we. There was a truck near the back of the lot that had not been there before, a heavy-duty flatbed with a hydraulic lift on the back, and 2 men were already talking to Patrick near Bay 1. There were others with tool bags coming across the gravel. There was a woman with a clipboard, and the manner of someone who was used to organizing large numbers of people into useful configurations. That's Margot, Bryce said. She runs the operations side of things for our chapter. She used to work construction management. Margot looked up from her clipboard at that moment and looked at Cody with the expression of someone who had a plan and would be implementing it shortly with or without his participation. I don't know what to say, Cody said. Then don't say anything, Bryce said. Go make coffee. A lot of it. He made 4 pots. Someone had brought Tim Hortons cups anyway, 3 boxes of them, which arrived in the arms of a large man named Terrence, who seemed to know exactly where the break room was despite having never been here and who had also apparently brought donuts. Margot assessed the building in the way of someone who has assessed many buildings. The lift needed a new seal, which 2 men had driven down from North Bay with in the back of their pickup truck. As if they had known this specifically, which they had because Patrick, it turned out, had been more forthcoming about the state of the shop than Cody had been with anyone. The roof leak was manageable. The compressor was less manageable, but one of the men, a quiet, methodical person named Colm who worked in heavy equipment maintenance in Timmins, spent 2 hours with it and came out of the bay wiping his hands on a shop rag and said it would hold for another season if it was serviced every 6 months, which it hadn't been. Cody stood in the middle of all of this and felt something he didn't have a word for. Not gratitude exactly. Something older than gratitude. The sensation of being caught by something you didn't know was there to catch you. He found Bryce near the tire rack around noon. How did you know? Cody said. About the bank. Patrick didn't know about that. Bryce reached into the inside pocket of his cut and pulled out an envelope. It was sealed and Cody's name was written on it in handwriting that was not Bryce's. Ozzy asked me to bring this, Bryce said. Cody looked at it. He didn't open it. He said to tell you, Bryce said, that your uncle gave him cost on a rear wheel because he could see that what he had was all he had. Ozzy was 23. He'd been sleeping outside for a month. He said Gerard Harrell was the first person in a long time, who looked at him and didn't look away. Bryce paused. Ozzy did all right eventually. He did a lot better than all right. He's been looking for a way to pay that back for 30 years, and he would like it very much if you would let him. Cody stood there. The shop was full of noise and movement, and the smell of coffee and grease, and the particular aliveness of a place that is being taken care of. He opened the envelope. Inside was a check and a note. The note said, "You've got his hands, now keep his shop." The number on the check was $14,250. Not rounded, not symbolic. The exact amount, plus the cost of the seal for the lift, which Ozzy had apparently also known about somehow, in the particular way of a man who had spent his life paying close attention to the specific nature of what things cost. Cody folded the note and put it in his shirt pocket. He stood there for a moment longer, looking at the lot full of bikes and the bay full of people, and the sign above the door with the H slightly off-center. Then he went and made another pot of coffee. He didn't say much for the rest of the afternoon. He worked alongside the people who were working, and he brought coffee to the people who needed it, and he shook hands with a lot of people whose names he learned and then couldn't always keep track of, which didn't matter because what mattered was the handshake, the moment of it, the realness of one person's hand in another person's hand. Ellis found him late in the afternoon, around 4:30, when most of the bikes had started pulling back onto the highway in ones and twos. "How's your dad's old shop?" Cody said. Ellis looked at him. He hadn't expected Cody to remember. "Gone," Ellis said. "They put a cell tower on the property eventually." Cody nodded. "But I remember it," Ellis said. "The smell of it. The way the radio always drifted off the station a little. The way he could listen to an engine and know what was wrong with it before he opened the hood." "Yeah," Cody said. "Places like this don't just belong to the person who owns them," Ellis said. He said it carefully, like someone who had worked out the thought a long time ago but hadn't said it out loud before. "They belong to everyone who's ever been in them." Cody didn't say anything. He looked at the shop. The lift was working. The compressor was running quieter than it had in 2 years. The corner behind the tire rack was dry. The crack in the ceiling near the exhaust port had been sealed with something that smelled like industrial silicone and would hold. The sign was still slightly off-center. He'd fix it one day. Or maybe he wouldn't. Some things were fine the way they were. Bryce was the last to leave. He stood with his bike running, one boot on the gravel. "Ozzy wants to come see the place," Bryce said, "when he's cleared to ride again. Maybe August." "Tell him August is fine," Cody said. Bryce nodded. He looked at the shop one more time. He seemed to be fixing something in his memory. "Your uncle would have done the same thing," he said. "I know," Cody said. Bryce pulled out of the lot and onto the highway heading north. Cody watched the tail light disappear around the curve where the highway bent toward the escarpment. The lot was quiet. The rain had been gone for days now, and the puddles had dried and the gravel was just gravel again. The sign cast its orange light in the early evening. Cody went inside. He took the note out of his shirt pocket and read it one more time, then put it under the ceramic mug on his uncle's desk, the one with the cracked handle, the one that was more epoxy than ceramic, and he went back out to the floor, because there was still the Jeep Grand Cherokee in Bay 1, and it wasn't going to fix itself.